Hello everybody, welcome to TraderMerlin Show, your Tuesday edition. Happy Taco Tuesday. Hope you had a great trading session out there. Lots of interesting stuff in today's markets to talk about. Certainly we'll start things off with the infrastructure bill, but I'll start things off with a shout out. I see we've got some new people in. Herbert from Zimbabwe. Good to have you with us, man. You're new to the show. I haven't seen you around. Zimbabwe. It's on the list of places to visit. I actually, behind this green screen here, I actually have a map of the world. It's a scratch-off map of the world to help me understand where I haven't been. And it's crazy because I have not set foot in Africa and I have not set foot in South America. Got to do them all someday. Anyway, good to see you with Chris Cardano. Yes, loving Cardano's move today. Lufthansa, good to have you with us. Shinobi Brian as well. Rob, Jerry, Tomasina. We got the whole crew today. John, Lori, good to see you. Susan as well from D.C. Just because you're from D.C., I all of a sudden think you're a politician, so I'll try to stay away from the snide remarks. Les Gold, obviously starting us things off. Kenny, Tomasina, and Walter Big Eb as well. All right, let me get rolling through today's show. Today, I just saw this topic, and I figured, we may as well just touch on it briefly. You guys probably heard my rant on yesterday's show where I called Senator Shelby of Alabama the donkey of the day just because of some of the things that he'd said. And I actually got a message from someone last night saying he did not say that he was actually pro-crypto. And I thought, you know what? Just to make it a point, I want to show you the Twitter page so you guys can see it because he did, in fact, say this. And for those who might not know what I'm talking about, he voted against the amendment for cryptocurrencies, which would basically define cryptocurrencies a little bit better. It would have been a win for the cryptocurrency space if he did. But, of course, Mr. Shelby decided not to. And he says here, I supported the Senator Toomey cryptocurrency amendment. I know of its importance to innovation and job creation, but I believe it pales in comparison to the security of our nation, which is why I called for a vote on my defense infrastructure amendment. It's unfortunate that Dems blocked both amendments. Okay, so now we get to play sides again. Boo the Democrats, boo the Republicans, whatever. But he basically shot something down because, like a little boy, he didn't get what he wanted, and he threw a little temper tantrum and decided not to vote. So to me, that obviously was a very bad piece of it. But that said, infrastructure bill is passed. And there was a question that came in from one of the viewers, which was this one right here. This is from Tina. Tina says, can you comment on the infrastructure bill, please? What will it do to stocks? This is not, in my opinion, this is not going to do anything. We made it past the Senate, and now we have to get to the House of Representatives, so I think it passed 69-30, so obviously a pretty good pass. I believe they needed 60 votes to get it through. It passed. So it's this collective cheer and applause from the politicians in the Senate because they did something. They actually accomplished something. Hey, bravo, you guys should get a golf clap for that one. But now it just goes to the House of Representatives, and of course Pelosi leading the House of Representatives will probably stall this until they get what they want, which is typical political stuff. So should it really move the markets? No. The money's not going to hit the market yet. Now, if this passes the House of Representatives, then you got something to cheer about because that means that all of the money that's been earmarked, and we're talking hundreds of billions of dollars, actually $1 trillion plus, will now be allocated and distributed. And of course, there's a lot of different target companies there, certainly big manufacturing equipment, paving companies, things like that, steel. But they've already been reaping some of the benefits of this talk track of the infrastructure bill. I think we all would agree at some point we're going to see this bill pass. There will be some stimulus coming through. I mean, it seems inevitable. It's just how much and when it finally gets through. I personally believe, and maybe you guys feel differently, I believe that if we look at some of the price charts here, you already see it priced in. I mean, look at the S&P 500. This is the broad representation of our market. It doesn't look weak at all. It looks just amazing. Just keeps on rolling to the upside. I forget all the different symbols. I don't know if it's Myria MM. I forget all my major big infrastructure tech stocks, but you've got, companies like Caterpillar, they've been doing great as well. Now, certainly it's been down a little bit over the past few months, but still Caterpillar's been doing tremendously well. Myriad Materials, I mean, there's so many infrastructure plays you can play here, but I believe that it's already priced in, which comes down to that old phrase of buy the rumor, sell the news. I think that if the infrastructure bill actually passes the House of Representatives, which I think it'll take forever in there as well, that you'll see is the markets will have a really big pop for a few days, maybe a week or so, and then all of a sudden will start to come down. Why? because if it gets the House of Representatives, there'll already be a pulse as to who's voting for it, who's voting against it, and that will already price itself into a lot of those companies. So, Tina, I don't really think this is going to be that catalyst that all of a sudden, if it passes, things just go straight up. Yes, new core steel today was just great. Actually, not today. Let's go look at NUE. It's been looking great over the past couple of weeks, right? It's been phenomenal from 90 to 118 in just about 3 weeks. Today, a huge move up, about 10%. So yeah, Eric, and there's a few of them in that steel space. I didn't look at U.S. Steel. Let me just check U.S. Steel real quick. My assumption would be that they're doing good as well. Yeah, and you can see a nice move up in U.S. Steel today, 4.8. So right away, anything to do with infrastructure is going to be rewarded based off of this vote win today for the Senate. Long term, who knows? I think that we all understand the gridlock process and how political parties, again, both sides will just say no because they don't get what they want, and the other side will say, well, we're not going to vote for your thing because we don't get what we want. And of course, we have this just ridiculously slow process that just seems to go on and on and on and on. So, Tina, I don't think you'll see much out there. If you want to know the details of it, I actually had a pretty good site that I was looking at that had where all of the different money was going from the infrastructure bill. And of course, the way things work for me here, I probably closed that one as I have 30 windows open trying to run this show and do all the streaming. Yep, I already closed that one. But there was a site that you can go to. You can type in how the infrastructure bill is going to be spent, and it breaks it down. It's interesting because one of the major ones there was bridges and roads, and there's actually a poll that says who has the best bridges and roads. So you already know that those states probably aren't going to get as much of the infrastructure bill as some other ones who have the worst roads and worst bridges. So you could be targeting that as potential long-term investments, but that's not something that I personally go for. Not my strategy. I just go off the price charts. So that's it, Tina. That's all I can really say from an infrastructure bill perspective. I don't see anything really that noteworthy out of it. It passed, big deal. It's got to go to the House of Representatives, and we'll just go through more and more jawing back and forth and political posturing. He is on the backside of the donkey, Mr. Yes. I mean, look, I'm sure every politician, regardless of aisle or how long they've been there, has done something good and constructive for the betterment of America, which, again, is my belief that should be their number one objective. But if you look at certain actions, you have to just question them and say, come on, you could have voted for. You even say in your comments that it was a good measure, it was a good amendment, but you decided not to because it just didn't pass your defense bill. We're probably the safest country in the world defense-wise. We spend more on defense than, what is it? Some of you guys might know this stat. I believe the U.S. spends more on defense than like the top 5 combined. Something like that. It's crazy how much we spend on defense. I think we could probably curtail just a little bit of defense spending and maybe improve our country and our way of life. All right, that's it for infrastructure. I could go on and on and on about this one, but there's no point. I don't believe that it's much to talk about simply because it hasn't seen the final light of day yet. That'll take some time. Jerry says, I just hope this infrastructure bill does not have the $10 million going to Pakistani transgender schooling they did the last mega bill. Well, Jerry, if you dig deep, there's definitely going to be some stuff in there that you're just going to go, what? What does this have to do with infrastructure, right? And it's just somebody getting something through for some big lobbyist or some constituent that donated a whole bunch of money, and they got to sneak something in there, which, again, is the part that I hate. I mean, by the way, if you know how long this bill is, it's 2,702 pages. I mean, that's longer than any book I've ever read, and those books usually take me a couple of months to finish. I don't know how these guys can get through it all there and understand all of it. All right, so let's see. Now let's go to charts. I want to do some analysis here. We can go down to a whole different bunch of different avenues, but I want to start off with a stock because we haven't looked at many price charts lately. There's been a lot of talk about cryptos, which we will dive into that because of some major news that happened here recently in the last 24 hours. So let's go look at price charts. This was from Scott. Scott says, I bought Schwab back in 2020 at $38.55. Where would be a good point to sell? I'll tell you what, Scott, as everybody here knows, I'll be happy to analyze it for you, but anytime you send in something like this, let me know. You said where you bought it, but what's your stop loss and what's your price target? You have to have a plan in place for yourself and say, here's where I think it's going to go. Here's where I would like it to get out for a profit, and here's how much I'm willing to lose in this trade. To me, that's critical, and obviously I'm happy to talk about these things, but you have to have a plan in place for every single thing that you make, because if you don't have a downside on something, you'll end up blowing your account on it or potentially blow your account. So let's go look at Schwab, SCHW. Wow. Schwab looking phenomenal. I'm going to start from the big picture here and go from the weekly time frame. From those 2020 lows, you were sub 30, so you said you bought in at 38.55. Let's just do a little bit of artwork here just to get those numbers exactly right so we can see exactly how much you're up, because honestly, brother, you're doing really good. 38.55. So there's your entry point. Now we'll do a snag and see where we are from right now to roughly where we are right now, which looks to be right there, to where you are right now. So you are up in 45 weeks. So in less than a year, you're up 93%. My first inclination would be just dump it. I'm willing to bet you. I'm willing to bet you that you did not intend on making 100% of this. You were thinking you're making some money, but not 94%. That's pretty impressive. So I would probably take off half and then trail the second half. Now here's why I would say get out of it. Look where we're coming into. We've already had this unbelievably huge run. Now, certainly some of the interest rate announcements could be impacting banks, but if you look at the daily, go back to the daily on this bad boy, you're coming into an area where I'd be pretty comfortable unloading anyway at 75, call it 75.70. That's an area where it turned in the past. It turned back in May of this year, and we're coming into it extremely aggressively right now. I mean, you've had 5 days in a row of really expanded range candles that could come right into that 75, 76 mark, have some hesitation, and just start to tank from there. So, don't look to gift horse in the mouth is another common phrase. You've got some pretty tremendous gains on this bad boy, so I would be inclined to take some profits as it gets that 75 mark. Could it go to 100? Sure, it could. Could it go to 200? Yeah, possible. But you've already got tremendous gains in, a little over a year. You're already up almost 100%. That's pretty phenomenal. I'd be inclined to lock that in. Jerry says, yeah, 76, great target to take it, at least half off. I would agree. I would go slightly before 76 because I think that'll be a whole number of psychology where a lot of people are going to try to sell anyway. So maybe get at 75 and 3/4, 75 and a half, and be happy with that. And if it does continue up, who cares? You've made a bunch of money on that one. Big F says, if nothing, put a tight trailing stop on it, Scott. Agreed. And it doesn't even have to be that tight. I mean, honestly, there should be no way that you take a loser on this trade. So if you take off half, and let's say it's 75, right? So it might have hit that today. I think it actually did hit 75 today. Yes, your intraday high, where is it at? Let me see. Your intraday high was 74.99, so 1 penny short of 75. Convenient how that runs. But yeah, I would be happy closing it out or taking half off and trailing it. One way to do it, a lot of people will do, is they'll move your stop loss below the low of the previous day. So if that's the case, then your stop loss would be moved up to 92.90. All right, if it gets 92.90, dump it. And you're like, but it could keep going. Yeah, sure can. But it could also come screaming back down. Let's see. Tom says, Schwab is still digesting the merger with TD Ameritrade. Fundamentals can be quite good. Just set trailing stop. I agreed. And again, it all depends on how tight you want to make that trailing stop, right? You could leave it really large. Certainly don't leave it all the way down to your entry price, but, use ATR maybe on a weekly and go from there. All right. What else do I got? I guess I felt the need to state the obvious. Ryan, I always appreciate it. No, it's, hey, you know what, Ryan? It's good because, I like the banter. I like when you guys chat back and forth, but, part of it is this should almost feel like, what do you say? Not an intervention group, but a lot of the stuff I'm going over should be fairly straightforward and understandable for most people. But you understand why so many people fail at trading is they don't actually have the foundation. They don't have the rules in place. So if you know the rules, then shout them out. And you're right. I'd agree with you, Ryan, and others. You got to lock some of that profit in here. Don't let it get away from you. So that goes that one. All right, this is for Chris. And Chris, I'm not sure if this is Chris from Fairfax, NorCal up there, but if it is, all right. Chris sent this one in. He says, what are your thoughts on the eToro SPAC FTCV? I listened to a good friend of mine hype it up when it came out and bought 1,000 shares at $12, slowly lowering my cost basis by selling calls. I'm content holding it till it recovers. Just a pain that is tying up capital. Yeah, so I'm a little bit gun shy because of what happened with me and my SPAC, which was supposed to go and buy BAKKT, but it didn't. They did, but it's still a merger in process, and then back changed their whole game plan. So I'm a little frustrated with SPACs. I feel like there's just too many unknowns. We did a show on SPACs, a year and a half ago, talking about are they a blessing or a curse? And if you look at most of them, most have failed. Most SPACs have just gone back down to right where they were. So let's look at yours. I'll bring it up here, and it was a FTCV. And this one here, it's a fintech SPAC, and basically they're trying to buy eToro. So they're in works to buy eToro, which, if it can happen, is great, right? There's a few major exchanges around the world in the crypto space, and we'll look at Coinbase here in just a second. But you have Coinbase is the first major one to go public. You have obviously Binance, which is not public. I'm sure they'd love to. You've got Kraken, which is getting bigger and bigger every day. They're going to go public next year through the traditional channels. And then eToro, there's another major crypto exchange competing with the Robinhood type space, and they're going to go public with a reverse merger or a SPAC, hopefully some point this year. So I think it could actually be a good play, right? If you believe all the details. Now, the strike price initially came out for this SPAC was $11.50. If you look at it right now, it's trading at $10.64. So below the value of what it was initially thought it could be. Right now, you said you bought when it first came out. This news, they're going to buy eToro, came out on March 16th, 2021. So you can see that was this year. Of course, when that news happens, has this huge spike up, jumped all the way up to a high of 1570, and it does what pretty much all SPACs do, is they spike on the news, and then they drift down and drift down and drift down. Hopefully, it won't go too much below the $10 or the $11.50 mark, because that really is their strike price. Now, if this deal doesn't go through, if something happens to this thing and it falls apart, I believe that they're required to pay back investors. They have 2 years on a SPAC. So they got 24 months to make this deal happen. If it does not happen, I believe that the money gets returned to the initial investors who bought those shares. And my assumption would be it would be at that $11.50 strike price. But that's just my assumption in here. I'm not 100% sure on how that works. Chris, there you go. Well, thank you, Chris. Man, if somebody paid me that much money to ask a question every time, I do nothing but Q&A shows. Thank you, Christopher. I appreciate it. Happy to answer those questions for free, but I definitely appreciate the donation. If I was drinking, I would cheers you right here on the show. We'll have to wait till Friday for that when I get my fresh bottle of Angel's Envy on the show. Yes, old Angel's Envy. I received a wonderful gift in the mail, which I will share with you guys on Friday's show. All right. Don't mix business with family, friends. Same reason why I don't give anyone advice. Walter, it's funny because I really don't do financial advice for anybody. I have a lot of friends. Hey, what would you do with this? Or what should I do with this? And my usual answer is, I'm not going to give you financial advice. And I would say, here's what I would do personally, but that's me. I'm different than you. So I don't manage anybody's money. I don't like to give anybody advice. I guess you look at this show as market commentary, not necessarily financial advice, but yeah, you get into trouble that way. You know what? I think I told you guys years ago on Power Trading Radio, I did a thing called the Power Pick of the Day. I had to come up with something catchy. And the Power Pick of the Day was basically me going over one chart that I thought looked good for me from my perspective, what I like to look for the next day. And I had my entries, my stop loss, and my price target on there, right? Great. If either one of those three variables hit, fantastic, I'll make a trade, but I'm protected on the downside, I'm protected on the upside. And some guy sent me some scathing email going after me on how I was a loser and he lost a ton of money on the trades. It's like, well, wait a minute, how did you lose a ton of money? He goes, well, I followed your Power Pick of the Day. I said, really? Well, that has a stop loss. So how did you lose a lot of money? He goes, well, I didn't get out when it hit the stop loss. Then how am I to blame, buddy? So I stopped doing that stuff because, I don't know, I guess sometimes people just don't appreciate it. It's kind of fun to do it because I like to scan the markets for opportunities and look for trade setups, but I stopped doing that just because people are, I guess, hanging on every word in trading. Look, this show is commentary. You guys might not agree with what I say. You might agree with it, but do your due diligence, right? If you're buying something, do your analysis, do your own research, but just giving you thoughts on what I might do in specific situations. I have an adversity to listen to friends. And Big Eb, Big Eb says, I have an adversity to listening to friends' investment advice for the most part. Me too. And I'll give you one great story on this one and why you shouldn't listen to your friends' advice, period. Years ago, I want to say this was 2000, maybe 99, I had a friend of mine who he was heavy in the trading world, and he had connections all over the place. He's one of those guys that just knows everybody. And he tells me, stock XYZ. I know the CEO of the company. I know the CFO. They're going to have blowout earnings, buy some of the shares. And I was like, yeah, that's called insider trading, man. I'm 165 pounds. I do not look good in an orange jumpsuit with a cellmate named Bubba. It's not going to work for me. So I'm not doing insider trading. So I didn't do anything with it. He bought a bunch of it. And what's interesting is they came out and they announced earnings and they blew out earnings. Huge earnings beat. But then they went on to talk about how their forecasts weren't as rosy for the future. What do you think happened to the share price? It just tanked from that point. And that's coming from the CEO and the CFO who knew what was going on and still screwed over their buddy with information and advice. So, yeah, I don't listen to anybody's advice. Anytime I mention something on this show, please do your own due diligence. It's food for thought. It's how I see things, and we might see things very differently. So always do your due diligence. You can't fix stupid, right? Come on, Big Yab. You know you like Ron White. Too many people looking for an easy ride. Lisa, that's exactly it. If you look at Jim Cramer, that's exactly what that show is all about. It's about people looking for someone, just tell me what to buy. And they're like, buy whatever he says. It drives me crazy. All right, what else we got? Harrison says the only plan that ever worked was my plan. And even my plan didn't work all the time. It doesn't work all the time, but over the long haul, it's my plan. And if it's something wrong with it, I can make amendments and changes to it. All right, what else do we have here? There was something. Is that all I had for questions today? Wow, that was it. That's all I had for questions. What questions you guys have for me today? Oh, you know what I want to get into? Yeah. So I'm working on, obviously you guys know I'm building the cryptocurrency class for Online Trading Academy, which will be a 6-module free class that everybody in the world can have access to. That's the plan anyway. Then there'll be a paid class, which will be about 43 different videos that are all self-paced, ranging anywhere from 2 minutes to 30 minutes, right? There's like almost 5+ hours of content in that program. And then there's one where I'll be doing 4 hours a week of just live trading analysis, moving, transferring, storing, yield farming, liquidity pools, automated market makers, all these crazy complex topics. One of the videos I recorded today was dealing with liquidity pools and dealing with staking and dealing with some of the risks involved with these things, especially decentralized marketplaces where you don't have a central entity. And one of the vulnerabilities you have in those structures is the smart contract itself. There's a vulnerability in a smart contract. So it was funny to see the news not funny. I mean, obviously it's pretty horrific. I don't know if you guys saw the news, but there was, I'll bring up this page here, a $611 million in cryptocurrencies were stolen in a hack on one of the major exchanges, and that's called Polybridge. Polybridge is one of those sites where, like right here, I can go to this exchange and I can swap out one asset for another regardless of chains. Very cool feature. Pretty awesome, right? It's great, but apparently they screwed up somehow and somebody got in there and moved the wallets in the tune of $611 million worth of cryptocurrency. Now, I love it because if you click here, I'm going to copy this Ethereum address. This is one of the things I love to do with cryptocurrencies. Somebody was like, oh, well, you can't track. It's like, really? Okay, well, let's see. Here is Ethereum, and I will go to the Ethereum Block Explorer, Blockchain Block Explorer, and we'll go down here to etherscan.io. And I'll put in the address. So all that, part of that $611 million worth of cryptocurrency that was stolen went to this address right here. So we click on it, and you can see right now there is $91 million worth of Ethereum sitting in there. There's 28,954 point blah, 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 blah Ethereum. But look at this down below under tokens. There's 57 different tokens in here. And it makes up a total of 181, I'll round up to $182 million sitting there. And you can see some pretty popular names here. There's some DAI. Right, you got Wrap Bitcoin. There's about a bunch of Tether. There's $33 million worth of Tether, Uniswap. I mean, there's just tons and tons of different tokens that have been spun off of that Ethereum blockchain. So kind of interesting to see how transparent it is. It hasn't moved yet, and basically right now the entire community is reaching out saying, hey, miners, we want you to blacklist these addresses. So if anything were to come from one of those addresses, blacklist it and block it. And basically, that stuff disappears forever. Now, what they could do is what they did back in 2014 or 15, which is roll back the code and basically make that theft not happen. But they decided not to do that, just going to keep on rolling forward. So for all intents and purposes, that $611 million will be gone forever, removed. So remember we talked about destruction. So there's this belief that Bitcoin, for example, will peak out at 21 million. Because that's in the code. It's how many Bitcoin there will ever be is 21 million. However, I believe that that number is going to constantly be dropping because of stuff like this. So if you have a cryptocurrency that was caught up in this, there is no longer those tokens because they're going to get stuck in an address that nobody will honor. I call that destruction, meaning it's destroyed and will not be part of the supply anymore because no one can access it. It'll be just blacklisted and blocked. So anyway, just thought I would share that one with you because we hear so much about thefts. We hear so much about attacks on cryptocurrencies. Usually it happens because you've given up your private keys. Now, if these cryptocurrencies were in a private wallet where you held all the private keys, this probably isn't going to happen. It's because of vulnerabilities on these different exchanges, whether it's the smart contract, whether it's the company itself not being good with the security of the private keys on their end and some employee gets it. Who knows? This could very easily be somebody at Polybridge who just decided to make this stuff move and then disappear with it. He probably quit yesterday, Who knows what's happening? But when you give up your private keys, you give up a lot of control. Shinobi says, how much Bitcoin has been lost already? Right now, there's no definitive answer on that, but they've looked at all the dormant addresses and ones that haven't moved in over like 5 years, and the estimate is between 4 and 5 million Bitcoin have already been lost. So, we talk about 21 million maximum Bitcoin. Well, if you say 5 million have been lost, that means there will only be 16 million. So this is why I'm so bullish on Bitcoin, is because you have supply is literally dropping. Supply is decreasing every day. Even though you have miners creating Bitcoin every day, I believe that the number of coins lost every day outpaces that. So we're going to get to a point, in the next 10 years, we're like, oh, well, there's 20 million Bitcoin. It's like, well, no, there's actually like 12 because so many have been lost. Big Ed said, backtest about 3. Some of the stuff I said read about 4 to 5, but either way, it's a lot, right? It's a lot. It's crazy to think that 3 million, even if it was 3 million Bitcoin have been lost. And that's $120 billion worth of Bitcoin is gone. How does this happen, Jeff? Great question. So I will bring this one up here. I don't know if this is a functioning one, but you guys know this is a paper wallet. So there's a Bitcoin address. With this address, I can keep whatever Bitcoin I want here. I can send everything here, and I control the private key. It's literally on the page behind this is my private key, which I will not be showing you because there might be money in this address. I don't know which wallet it is. If you were to lose that private key, so I'll show you a piece of the private key. How about that? I can't show you the whole damn thing. I don't want to lose it all. All right, so there's the beginning of the private key right there. See where it says capital L, number 1, capital U, capital R, capital or lowercase k. That's the beginning of the private key for this address to access it. If you were to type in this address wrong, as instead of capital L, you did lowercase l, it's gone. If this piece of paper was to get spilled on and I could no longer read the letters or numbers in the private key, it's gone. If you were to put your cryptocurrency on a hard drive, and on that hard drive you had your private keys on there, and that's the only place you had your private key, it's gone forever. That's right, Lisa. You think I'm going to show you that? That'd be like me giving you my bank account, my social security, my passwords, all my personal information. You could literally take whatever was at this address and disappear with it. Love you guys, but I'm not that generous. So that's a couple of different ways, Jeff, that people can lose them. I think I told you multiple times I was creating wallets for a coworker, and I sent Litecoin to an address that I didn't write down the private key. Gone. I've shown you this many times where if you can look at, let's see, riches. I'm just for fun, rich Bitcoin addresses. It's actually it's great because you can just click on this and look and see the number of addresses. So right now, this top wallet right here, which is a Binance wallet, has $13 billion worth of Bitcoin in it. $13 billion. Well, you can see the address, but without that private key, you can't access it. So if you lose that, it's gone. Yeah, it's gone, 100%. So to go to Big Eb's comment, he said best guess is about 3 million. So right here it says top dormant for 5 years Bitcoin addresses. The assumption is that something that's gone for 5 years or hasn't moved for 5 years is dead. It's a lost address. So you can look right here where this vertical line is. Right now they're saying it's 4.1 million addresses have not moved in 5 years. 4.1. So that's I will say that 4.1 million are lost right now. There you go. Oh yes, Kenny. And you know what's funny? It's actually kind of funny, but not. Kenny says, the name of your first pet and your mother's maiden name. for the love of God, people, please do not go out to YouTube or Facebook or Twitter when someone puts up those stupid polls. It was like, what was your first car? They put these polls where you have to like answer all these questions. And it's like, you understand that those are nothing more than phishing attempts for people to get all your personal information. It's like, oh, what was your first car? What color was it? What was your dog's name? What's your mom's maiden name? Oh, wow, we're friends. We know each other so well. It's like, yeah, you basically just gave everybody access to your backward pass-up codes. Yes, Shinobi, surely that's Binance itself. Yes, I mean, look at the size of that wallet. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that is Binance itself. But you know, look, it's funny. Look at these wallets here. These are wallets that haven't moved. There's I'll call 80,000 Bitcoin sitting at this one address right here, and we can click on it. We can see that address. Give me a second here for it to load up, and you guys can see this top line right here. It's just a blue line. This has been a lump sum deposit. That was, oh my goodness. Oh man. So in 2011, it looks like this address was created when Bitcoin was trading at, I can give you the price, maybe the price of Bitcoin back then. Oh, it's not giving me the exact price. You can scroll all the way to the bottom here and go all the way back and see every transaction that's ever happened in this account. And I'll go back to the very first deposit so we can see on this address what happened. It's kind of creepy. It could take me a while because there's so many pages of this. Wow. So here's your very first deposit. It was a deposit of 79,956 Bitcoin, which at the time was at 93 cents. This was a $74,000 transaction. Can you imagine? Oh my goodness. That is just mind-boggling. Somebody in 2011, which is just 10 years ago, dropped $74,000 worth of Bitcoin in this wallet, and they haven't touched it. This person could very well have lost their private key. Could you imagine the insanity that would be going on in your head if you knew that your wallet was now worth $3.9 billion? Yeah, that would absolutely drive me crazy. Let me just get the exact amount here because I'll bring it up to you for the front. Right now, this address is looking at $3.645 billion worth of Bitcoin, and it has not moved. Yes, there's another one that's lost in landfill. All kinds of crazy stories about it, but that's Batista, stop looking at my address. Well, if that's your address, I'll put a ring on it. Come on. Wow. Right, Shinobi? Wouldn't that be crazy? I mean, obviously life is one gigantic, if I knew then what I know now, right? Like if we had any clue that Bitcoin would have been like this, in 2009, I would have bought, 100 grand worth when it was trading at 2 cents. And it'd be a completely different story now. But yes, Eric, good point. He says, or they are dead. And here's the point, or they're dead and they lost their private key. Here's the challenge, and this is something for me that I'm actually grappling with right now, is, when you think about your will and you think about passing on your estate, it's obviously critical that everybody here has documentation of where everything is at, right? Make sure that you always, map out your finances so if you should pass away, it's easy for somebody to find it. Even if it's regular, current, centralized businesses like Bank of America, Wells Fargo, all of that is documented. I mean, you'll get emails and you'll know that they have those accounts. I look at my cryptocurrency right now. Nobody knows the extent and scope of all of the accounts that I have and where all this money is hidden. So if I was to pass away, there's a good amount of money that would probably just disappear unless somebody had what? My private keys and access to show here's where all that account information is. So yeah, it's a crazy world to think so much money's just sitting there. But to answer your question, Jeff, that was long-winded answer to it. You can lose your cryptocurrencies in a lot of different ways. The main one is losing your private key. If you lose any piece of that private key, it's gone forever. So that's why it's important for you to have a backup and keep your cryptocurrency keys in a very, very safe place. And by the way, do not ever give your private key to anybody. Especially, if someone's asking you, there was one airdrop that was asking for your private key to your wallet so they could airdrop you. Nobody needs your private key to airdrop you something, right? They just need your public address, which you can give that to anybody. Go ahead. I think I posted one. I may actually make it part of the show. Feel free to send any money to this Bitcoin address because only I have the key. You can see it, but you can't touch it. All right, I saw someone earlier ask, what's about a few of these price? They're dead. I'm an inside trader. Hope Cardano does that, but that way... I don't think you'll see Cardano up at the 40,000 mark, but if they can get smart contracts implemented and start to really roll out, I think that you could definitely see much higher prices. Does it get to a few $100s? Yeah, potentially. There's not ruling that one out, but I don't think you'll see it at the 50 grand mark. Alex Nader says, what about if we buy the Bitcoin from your broker like TD Ameritrade if we lose the password? Great question. No, it wouldn't be the same, Alex Nader. So if for example, this is a cold storage wallet. This is called a paper wallet that I'm holding up right now. If I lose this private key, it's gone forever because I control the private key. If you have a TD Ameritrade account, if you have a Coinbase account, a Kraken account, a Binance account, an eToro account, a Robinhood account, when you buy crypto at those exchanges, they have the private key. And that's the danger, right? Because somebody inside of Coinbase, I doubt this would happen, but it could. Somebody at Coinbase could just look over, take that private key, and instantly move all the entire portfolio of Coinbase that's at that address. If they have the private key, can move it anywhere they want, and then they just disappear. Move to Southeast Asia, live the rest of your lives off that money. It's possible. So it's a matter of who controls the private keys. So if you're doing it through the TD Ameritrade, they have the private keys. So if you lost your password to access Ameritrade, they'll ask you all your normal security questions. You'll still be able to get in and have your crypto there. Good question. Have somebody you trust. Don't want to donate your Bitcoin. Yeah, I know. I agree, Jerry, and I'm working on it. Cool. Just in case Merlin's personal IRS agent is listening. Yeah. No. Kenny, I'm open. The IRS knows my holdings. I do not want to screw around with the IRS. I want nothing to do with them. I'm above board. I'm paying taxes on my crypto. There's a lot of people that are using crypto and not paying their taxes, and that's a risk that some people are willing to take. I'm not. I just do not want to deal with the IRS. They're much more powerful than me. Mike, yeah, you did send that question. Mike sent a question about a special dividend that was being paid out on, it was McAfee, wasn't it? I can't remember. I think it was on McAfee that you asked about that one. I do have my 2 cents on that. So let me bring up, I thought I had a chart up here. If I remember correctly, it was McAfee. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mike, but send in the question and just verify it was McAfee. And the question was basically, McAfee announces a special one-time dividend. And most companies never do this, right? Let me see. Is it MAC? McAfee. We go to stocks, and I will bring that one up for you guys right now. McAfee. I think it's MC. There it goes. McAfee. MCFE Corp. So here's your McAfee, and you can see that they have been down here at the bottom. You can see a D means they're paying dividends. Everything's fine. With McAfee, though, they've declared a special dividend. It's a pretty big one. Yeah, McAfee. A pretty big payout. I'm not a fan. First off, I believe dividends are not the best thing. And here's why. Dividends are a way to make you feel warm and fuzzy that you're getting some money. But if a company could actually take those dividends and make more money with it, they should keep that money for themselves and grow the underlying share value. To me, when a company starts to pay dividends, it basically means that they don't see that the potential for them going forward to grow their business at the rate. So they're basically going to give you money to as incentive for you to stay and hold their shares. So McAfee making this one-time giant distribution kind of makes me raise an eyebrow and go, why are you doing that? Because they just don't see the prospects for their business expanding is kind of the general thought track with that one. So it's a one-time thing. It probably won't happen. Usually companies don't ever do this. It's a one-time payment, not the regular payments that they're typically doing. So, enjoy it. What will happen is usually the share price drops by the amount of the dividend. So, you're not really making anything if you're holding the underlying shares. Anyway, that's my take on it. I'm not a big dividend guy, not a fan of dividends. I'd rather see a company hold on to the earnings and grow them at a much greater rate and get my shares to be a much higher value. All right, let me go and see what we have for today. By the way, I want to show you this earnings calendar real quick, and then we'll show you the charts too. Here is the earnings calendar for today. Coinbase. I just put it up there because Coinbase, they're supposed to make $2.49. They came out at $6.42, a massive beat on earnings of 157% today. So heck of a jump up there with regards to earnings for Coinbase. Now, let me wrap this one up here because I got to run. Economic calendar for tomorrow is showing quite a bit. You see a lot of different announcements happening. Really, the main one is the consumer price index numbers coming out tomorrow. That's going to be at 5:30 in the morning. You also have crude oil inventories, and that's the major stuff that's happening for the U.S. for tomorrow. You also, late tomorrow night, have GDP numbers coming out for the British pound. And then we have, down here at the bottom, a little bit of earnings. Only reason I put this is because you have eBay and NEO reporting earnings tomorrow, and that will be about it. All right, everybody, I'm sorry, I got to run here real quick. That is going to wrap it up for today's show. I will scroll through. I see a couple questions that didn't get answered. I will do my best to scroll through and get those questions answered, but I got to go real quick and grab this phone because it's driving me crazy, and I think it's a work thing, so I got to do that. That said, have a fantastic day, everybody. If you have questions, email me, TraderMerlin@gmail.com. That'll do it for today. I will see you on Hump Day, Wednesday. Have some tacos, have some fun. I'll see you tomorrow.